is the name, but there's a veil that cannot be rent in twain, and Yahweh ain't put it in there. I'm not kicking about it. I'm not belly aching about it. I ain't writing nothing back. Good, bad, or indifferent. I just need her to be able to sign on the dotted line when we finish the business. You follow? And I'll be fair about it. And that's it. I'm not chasing no one down a rabbit hole to get them to hear and believe what I've come by grace that Yahweh allowed me to hear. I got cousins that grew up and sat in the same seats down there at 1040 South Grand with me. Where they at? I'm not mad about it. It's Yahweh will. Some he picked, some he don't. And by grace that he may keep me in steadfast in his arms, shielded by him. Learning with everyone here about showing someone what is the reality about Yahweh. Keep reading about Yahshua, about a specially prepared sacrificial body, knowing it was going to have to be sacrificed. Read.
He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to
See, all that's allegorical. All that has to be understood. Those stripes are the whips that he was taken from here out on Golgotha. Of seeing how those statements, we're all gone away as sheep. Everybody uses the word sheep. Everybody has an idea about the sheep and the shepherd. But they looking at as their minister, as they're being as though that's their shepherd, as though they're part of that church's flock. That's not what it's talking about. There ain't but one shepherd, and that's Yahshua the Messiah. And he's not flesh and blood. He is spirit. He materialized as Yahshua Messiah for some 33 and a half years. That's all that happened. And then he took off the flesh. No different than he transformed from Yahweh pure spirit into Yahweh or Elohim. No different. He done come out of Mary's womb, and she was amazed herself. Wow. And he said from early on that he's about his father's business. Well, his father's spirit. He's not talking about Joseph. He wasn't a carpenter. They want to belabor that issue as though he was, but he was fulfilling. He was not a carpenter. He was fulfilling what he instituted. And because people think Joseph, his stepdad, if you want to call it that, was a carpenter, you say, well, Jesus was a carpenter. You put him right back down into the flesh. You make him be just as Joseph was. Now realizing that he said his father is Yahweh, and Yahweh's spirit. Therefore, he was not a carpenter. He went through the motions. He helped build on the tabernacle or the temple, however that worked. But he himself was spirit, materialized for a particular purpose, for a particular job. And that was to get sacrificed on this chart or on this cross for us. They had their way of escape through John the Baptist, because that's all he was dealing with at that time, was that nation of people, Joshua specifically. And they getting baptized of John the Baptist was their way of escape. Then when come Joshua on the cross, and when he died and was buried and resurrected, and then he ascended unto the Father on high, and then 10 days later, he's come again. See, in my text, I read that she said, he's soon to come. No. He's residing here now in the hearts and minds of those who believe the report. He's not coming from anywhere. He's here. What's coming is a universal revelation within all men's minds as to who and what he is. That's not coming from anywhere. It's just going to be a moment and a tweaking of the eye, and you'll recognize good, bad, or indifferent. And it's either you are or you're not. There's not going to be no learning curve or no extended course or no makeup course at that time. That's what we're expressing is the urgency of being saved in the name of Yahshua Messiah. Acts 4 and 12. Please.
Acts 4 and 12. 11. This is the stone which was set at naught of your builders, which is become the head of the corner.
That's Yahshua the Messiah. Not Peter. Not Peter. See, the whole world got Peter being the cornerstone. That's why they done built him up as Peter or St. Petersburg Cathedral in Italy, right? They think they have him set up as the cornerstone, the first pope. And it's been expressed that he didn't even go or travel to Rome. But yet, how she just read that, people interpret that as though he was the first stone. Reread, please. Reread. This is the stone. They're looking at him as the stone. Just as they said, take this, eat, is my body. And that's why they have the whole world taking communion and not knowing anything about this or that. Because when you break it down, he didn't give them bread to eat as though that was part of his body. Because he said he was the bread. Keep reading.
This is the stone which was set at naught of you builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved.
That's the name. And that name is not Jesus Christ. And people want to poo-poo and just think that it's not relevant. Now, back to this. If we have this tabernacle, it's set up as 1, 2, 3. You have Yahshua, Yahshua, he died and he went up, how shall I explain? Wow. All right. Huh? No. This is a spiritual kingdom on earth, right? Colossians 1 and 13, please.
Colossians 1:13. 12. Giving thanks unto the Father which has made us meet.
Now that meet made us meet together in a certain fashion, perfectly fit and joined together in understanding. You follow? According to the gospel of Yahshua Messiah. This is how we were meeting and coming together because we are hearing something of one accord, if you would. That's the meeting that he's talking about. Read.
Which has made us fit to be partakers of the inheritance of the sons in light.
And we're going to be fit to be partakers of the sons in the light or the knowledge of Yahshua the Messiah. Okay, read.
Who has delivered us from the power of darkness.
Now look, we've been delivered from the power of darkness. Where is darkness on this migratory pattern? If anybody can tell me. I don't want to let the cat out the bag. It's the court roundabout. It's Egypt, correct? Now look, this is court roundabout. This is equated to Egypt. You follow? Yeah. Egypt, right? This is darkness. Right? Yahshua came down into darkness. He came down at 30 years old and to raise them up. right? He came down into at 30 years old and began the ministry. For what? In order to save our souls, correct? So he had to come down into this state. Now, is he going to reside here forever and ever? You shake your head. Did you know or not know? Is he going to reside here forever and ever? He's here within us, the sons of light. But it's spiritual. We're not dealing with Moses back here, or Noah, or Moses and these times back here, this first covenant that was given to the Jews. We're not dealing with the Abrahamic promise and things of that nature. We're using that information about Noah and the ark and how it showed an upper deck, a middle deck, and a lower deck. We're seeing the Spirit and how it was operating down through the dispensations and ages. We are using that because the Messiah said he's not come to destroy the law and the prophets, because that's also what this is. Not only 4,000 years, but it's the law and the prophets. You follow me? And we're not destroying that. But this was in darkness. Because, hey, this is the spiritual kingdom on earth. So therefore, you have to psychologically, according to your conscience, start seeing things according to a spiritual reality. Don't believe it? Hold on. Don't believe it? What do you mean a spiritual reality? How are we supposed to understand a spiritual, how am I supposed to walk around with a spiritual? Got a pamphlet, got textbooks, got things we can use in order to help, hopefully, got this one. The clergy has ignorantly called Yahshua the Messiah a liar in saying that he instituted rather than fulfilled carnal ordinances. Okay? I want to go to the back of the book, and you have examples in the back of the book. I don't know, can you find that on there, the net? Because I wanted to make it very clear that there is a spiritual reality that once we see and understand the report, we're just not belaboring blood, water, spirit 40, blood, water, spirit 40. We do use it, and we'll maintain using it forever and ever. Never going to go away. But there has to be a spiritual reality. It's going to be at the end of that book. It's going to be at the end that I want. All right. Okay, so we got Yahshua down here in darkness, and we're just reading where we were reading at, right? So, you know what I want, Eunice? No? Okay, just get right here. Just get on me and show her in the book, and then I want to keep reading about this darkness, because we got to pull Yahshua out. He doesn't stay in this condition, is what I'm expressing. Yeah, you saw that? Yeah. That's what we're going to go back to the scripture in Colossians 1:13 about that death in Egypt.
13. Who has delivered us from the power of darkness?
Now we've been delivered from the power of darkness. Read.
And has translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son.
Now you've been translated into a kingdom of his dear Son. His Yahweh's dear Son, translated, meaning moved from Egypt, or this court roundabout, into this holy place, if you would. That's getting Yahshua out of the flesh.
Right.
Now, if you've been translated and you can see the report, and you're going to be able to maintain your conscience, you're not maintaining your conscience, but the belief in that report it will elevate you, just as we get elevated as you hear a speaker speak and you follow along with what's being said, and you getting elevated, you being immersed in the name of Yahshua the Messiah, or in the gospel of Yahshua the Messiah. You're being elevated outside of your egotistical, misdirected personality. And we sometimes say, well, we fall. Well, hey, there is an upward and downward pattern, but we are to know that and not be moved by every wind of doctrine while you're down dealing in the earth plane.
Right.
That's why Yahshua did ascend, but he did return. He returned in the hearts and minds of men. But Yahshua, Yahshua is not in the earth plane and not coming back anymore. He's going to be revealed by the sons who preach the gospel, which is who he is. Keep reading.
14. In whom we have redemption through his blood,
Mm-hmm.
even the forgiveness of sin.
Now that redemption to his blood, what is that? Can't go find Yahshua's blood. That's 2,000 years ago. You have to understand the blood according to this bloodline. This is the blood that we are now expressing in order to run a line down through the period of time. This is the water line that we see that his water, because out when they pierced him, out came forth blood and water. Now he just said blood there, but we understand that there's a water principle line and there's a spirit line. That has to be understood as the basics in order to bring a person up to see the spirit operating. Keep reading there.
Who is the image of the invisible El, the first cause of all creation.
Now that's the image of the first cause of all creation. That's Yahshua. Not separate. He was here. He was back here with Moses. And he was the first cause of all creation. Keep reading.
For by him were all things created.
For by Yahshua, the one that think that he just came in at the late freight at the end of 4,000 years, just coming to be the son, as it were, and just to set, as the clergy say, an example, right, or a institution of something. That's not what he came for. Not realizing that he came and set everything up and created everything. It just didn't pop up here, come out of some woman's loins as a regular old child. We read there in Isaiah that he was a specially prepared sacrifice, that you couldn't see him coming, didn't want to see him, and beat him at that. They did, and we beat him now in saying that I don't believe that the name is Yahweh. You beat him when you say I prefer Jesus the Christ. And as nice as you want to be, and you want to hold on to that egotistical, misdirected personality about the creator of heaven and earth, woe unto you is all I have to say. Keep reading.
By him were all things created
Yeah.
that are in heaven and that are in earth,
Uh-huh.
visible and invisible.
Visible and invisible. He created that. Yahshua the Messiah. Because, hey, once Yahshua created Elohim, he took off, he put on his working clothes, and Yahweh went out into creating business. He created his only begotten son. And his son was Yahshua the Messiah. Keep reading.
Whether they be thrones or dominions, principalities or
She have a power. She started doing some voodoo with me through texting and stuff. That my attitude was wrong and whatnot, because she didn't like how I was speaking. So I had to put all that. I just changed it, just shut all that up, right? Because she thinks she have some power, some principality, because she walking in the name of Jesus Christ. That's how they feel, that they have a power and they're going to be able to exert themselves on me. And they do it to us. But that's an outward demonstration. But I know I have my own powers that come that I have to be able to put down too. And this is what we're going to look at as far as the spiritual aspect of it. That's physical. That's a physical text from a physical woman. I ain't got no problem. I'm not kicking against that. But that's a physical thing. But then I have a psychological thing or a spiritual fulfillment in me. I can't fix that. I can't fix her. I say I'm not running after her to save her no kind of way. But me, there's a spiritual fulfillment for me or for we that we can correct. Keep reading.
All things were created by him
Uh-huh.
and for him.
Right?
And he is before all things.
Yes.
And in him all things have been permanently placed.
That's in Yahshua, the Messiah.
Right.
From here, before the creation, until he came down here at 30 years old into Egypt, into darkness, and to institute the things he instituted with the children of Israel, and until he came some 2,000 years later as Yahshua the Messiah through the loins of the Virgin Mary in order to fulfill that spiritual fulfillment that he set up. Now, that's where we can see, and people get wrapped up in that, and that's beautiful to see those correlations work. And Will Williams often says you have to see or make those correlations. What I'm meaning, this is the Lamb of Yahweh. Hey, we have read there in Matthew how John said, "Behold, the Lamb of Yahweh who cometh to take away the sins of the world." That lamb is the same lamb that they digested down here in Egypt. You follow? That's a correlation that we're making according to a spiritual principle, right? And we got to see that according to what's been written in the book. But then there is an ascension or a spiritual fulfillment, not of that, but of our own reckoning. And when we go to this pamphlet, and let's grab baptism. That's an easy one. No one wants to talk about baptism anymore because everybody knows water's not going to wash away sin. So we know we're not going to get in no water, and everybody who want to get in the water is going to be wrong. That's what we say now. It should be the first one. Page 34. Yeah, just start with the law, because what we're having, okay, great, she has it on the monitor. So you got baptism. I'm going to scroll. Yes, let's go ahead and read the drafts shown on the following pages, and it explains what we're talking about. Because I made the comment. There's a spiritual fulfillment that we have to recognize, and we don't often recognize because we stay down here in Egypt. We don't realize that we're in a spiritual kingdom age, and we have to see things according to a spiritual understanding. That's the fulfillment that ought to be in you, not just getting the correlations and going through the blood, water, spirit fully only, because, hey, there's an ascension too. There's a death, burial, resurrection, and ascension, where that ascension is a spiritual fulfillment of that spiritual principle being risen up in your heart and mind, or our heart and mind, right? Not just staying down here and seeing that. That's fine for what it is. People have all over the world. We see nature lovers. They have binoculars and they study birds and they study whales and they study animals and they do all these wonderful things for us to see. But then what? It's all for Yahweh's purpose. And you see the beauty, and we go around saying Yahweh's great, man. Look at the beautiful colors. Look at the animals, what they do, and they procreate, and oh, this is so wonderful. And for what? For mankind to come and destroy it. Oh, man, so bad, and they destroyed all the animals that God had made, and that's not what it is. But we're going to get back to it. Hey, wait, go ahead. Just start it on the shot screen. Mm-hmm.
How that Joshua, the Elohim of Israel, appeared by vision to Moses, shown on the left. Instituting the law contained in the first 5 books called the Pentateuch, also prophesied through men of old, instituting the prophets. At the right, the same Elohim manifested in a physical form of Yahshua the Messiah, fulfilled the same law and prophets, including everything as far back as 4,000 years BY. the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, this same Elohim took off the flesh and made his abode within the man, beginning on the day of Pentecost.
Reread that again. Reread that again, because what I said was that Joshua didn't go away and stay away. And this is proving that he's not coming no kind of way. And we just read it right here, clear as day. Let's read.
Finally,
Finally,
this same
the same
Elohim
Joshua
took off the flesh.
when he died, he was buried, and he resurrected. That's taking off the flesh. He rose a quickening spirit. He abided on earth for 40 days. He ascended up into heaven. And then he came back out and did what? Read.
And made his abode within the man, beginning on the day of Pentecost,
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment of the promise that he, Yahweh Elohim,
Mhm.
would write his law in their heart and mind, which constituted the New Testament or covenant, written by the Holy Spirit. That's it.
Written by the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost, when he went into the hearts and minds of men. That's Joshua, the Holy Spirit, doing all of that for the fulfillment of what he came in to do, of fulfilling the promise that was given to Abraham. This is what was set up, and he's abiding in us. And now we're going to go through the baptism or immersion exercise. Okay? And we're going to, scroll back there, right there. Because we got to see this institution of the law and the prophets. That's showing it's being instituted. Then we're going to see how the Messiah fulfilled it. You follow? And we're going to read down primarily through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But he's not fulfilling that in a New Testament period. He's fulfilling that while under the law. Joshua is fulfilling. Then we're going to see the spiritual fulfilling that ought to take up residence in us. Not just, hey, it is knowing how this is working, the law and the prophets, no doubt. But then there's also a spiritual fulfillment of how you are to be spiritually minded, according to what you've been shown and what we do see as we see things throughout nature that's beautiful. And it gives a reflection of what Yahweh is. But that also is in you. So let's just start with Exodus 14 and 22. We don't have to grab the book verses, because it merely states the verse within this read. But we will grab the spiritual fulfillment portion of it. Go ahead and read.
Exodus 14:22, Holy Name Bible. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand, and on their left.
Mm-hmm.
1 Corinthians.
Now that's a statement about that baptism, about when the children of Israel went through the Red Sea. Okay? Now we're going to have 1 Corinthians, Saul talking about this, confirming that same event. Read.
1 Corinthians.
1 Corinthians 12:13. For by one
Scroll up a little bit.
Go up.
No, I'm telling her it's right there.
For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body,
Uh-huh.
whether we be Jews or Greeks, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit. But it goes further.
No. Moreover, no, where are you at reading that? You reading moreover, brethren?
No, she's reading the spiritual.
No, I don't want the spiritual.
First the
Oh, 10.
Just read it off the, you have
First
the
Corinthians.
booklet right there.
Yeah. 1 Corinthians 10:1 and 2, Holy Name Bible. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all immersed unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea.
Now that immersion is the baptism that happened under the law. Now we're going to the prophets. Scroll back down, and then so we can see it in the screen. Oh, you got
Ezekiel 36:25, Holy
Okay.
Name Bible. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you.
Now you see, Catholicism, they sprinkle as their immersion. They don't dunk people in the water. Christians, typically they're stopping the dunk, but they use the dunking or the immersing or putting people in the water. But they're pulling out these scriptures, not knowing how they apply and not knowing the significance of them. Now we know in that baptism or immersion, whichever one you can put sprinkle up there too. Because what it's expressing is that Ezekiel, by the Spirit, is saying he's going to be clean, he's going to clean you up. Just like when they put you in water, they think you're going to be cleansed of sin. But we know that water won't wash away a person's consciousness. So what needs to be washed, this is a type and a shadow that was set up by the law of what Moses went through in the children of Israel. We have the prophet looking back at this event of it being cleaned up because, hey, 3 days they had to be at the base of that mountain cleaned up and be able to receive the word of Yahweh at the base of that mountain on that first trip. And this is what the prophet's looking at, because that already transpired. He realized they had to be cleaned, but that's not going to be the full cleaning. So we're not going to go run back 4,000 years and say, oh, I got to do what Moses do. We're not doing that. We're just saying that that's what was done. Now we're going to have Joshua come in. Read Matthew 3:13.
Matthew 3:13 through 15, Holy Name Bible. Then cometh Joshua from Galilee to Jordan unto John to be immersed of him.
They're going to be immersed. This is Joshua going to be immersed. This is Joshua going to be fulfilling that which he had the children of Israel do. Because if you read over here in 14th chapter of Exodus, you see that Joshua was there telling Moses to raise your hand in order to part the Red Sea. That was Joshua doing that. And so he instituted that with the children of Israel. Now yes, Joshua is going to be fulfilling that because he's going to get immersed by John the Baptist or the last prophet. Keep reading.
But John forbade him, saying, I have need to be immersed of thee, and comest thou to me? And Joshua answering said unto him, Permit it to be so now, that thus it becometh us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he permitted him.
And he did that. Joshua got down in water in order to perform that act, and that was only to fulfill that which was set up in Exodus. That's clear as day, and people can't see that. And if you've been blessed enough to see that little tidbit, you're on your way. But be mindful, there's a spiritual fulfillment too. Just having a bunch of knowledge is not going to do you any bit of good. We see that manifested throughout the world. We heard give a testimony of that tonight about them at one time having awareness, and then apparently at another time later on don't have an awareness. Been swept away. Been cleaned and garnished, and that what's the parable of the bridesmaid with the oil and not having anything to not having the oil. With the lampstands, yeah, not having their oil. Right. Now you got a whole classroom throughout. You have many classes throughout the country with no oil in them. With no oil in them to preach the gospel, and it's so egregious you don't even want to go back and listen to it, afraid to get swept up. By the time you got off of this concept of, oh, I need to do this Christian-like and this Christian-like, and by the time you get off of that bandwagon, when you see, oh, you believe the report, that, hey, the report was that Joshua came in to fulfill, holy smokes, I'm good with that, and you be thankful for that, right? But some people, they go back to their own vomit, and they go back, and then their first estate is worse than their last estate. 1 Corinthians 12 and 13, Holy Name Bible. If we can grab that out of the book, Eunice, we can grab these out of the book. Now remember, we're talking about a baptism and we're talking about an immersion. Now, whether you've been baptized when you're younger or older, by the time you did come into the reality and see what the purpose of the baptism was for, then you're fine. Whether you was or whether we had, I think that's why the 1 Corinthians 8 yesterday or on Tuesday was so beautiful. Whether you eat it or whether you don't eat it, it doesn't make a difference. Whether you put it on the altar or whether you ate it off the altar. We're not looking at water baptism in that fashion. So now once we get an understanding that this was what the story was about and we learn the various different events, how it works, the law, prophet, fulfillment, you get stronger in that storytelling, if you would, right? But what we want to take away is here, 1 Corinthians 12:13.
For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Greeks, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit.
What? Type to her. All right, so go ahead and read. 1 Corinthians. What was that, 12?
1 Corinthians 12:13. For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body.
Now, by one Spirit, now we have to realize that the one Spirit is Yahshua, or the one Spirit is Yahweh, in two manifestations of Elohim and Yahshua. Read.
Whether we be Jews or Greeks, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit.
Now, this is the point of what we're supposed to be gathering. Reread that one more time, please.
For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body.
Now, this is the significance of understanding how that baptism was set up by Yahshua the Messiah with the children of Israel going through the Red Sea, how it was fulfilled by Yahshua at the River Jordan with John, and now how we now, after the Pentecost,